Alright, Overwatch fans, Reaper fanatics, in this video I'm going to be taking a look at
Death himself!
and talk about whether he's overpowered, underpowered, or in a good spot currently in Season 8 of Overwatch 2. So what qualifies me, a blind noob, to make this judgment? Well, some background. I've been playing Overwatch 2 since Season 1 on console, one-tricked Reaper to GM in Season 7, and have been hovering around low GM High Master since. I do not swap against bad matchups or maps. I play 100% Reaper and have logged over 400 hours and 2,000 matches with him. So I think I have a pretty good idea of how Reaper performs in most situations. Okay, so first off, let's take a look at Reaper's weapons, the Hellfire shotguns. Looking at the numbers, each shot fires 20 pellets, dealing up to 5.4 damage per pellet for a total of 108 damage per shot. So he can one-shot squishies if he lands all pellets mostly on the head. His damage drop-off begins at 10 meters and his spread is pretty wild, so naturally he thrives at very close range. His passive, the Reaping, grants 35% lifesteal on all damage he inflicts. That includes his primary fire, melee, and his ult. This is a really great passive for fighting tanks, as you'll be landing most of your pellets, but it's not going to help much when you're fighting toothpicks like Kiriko. And FYI for when you're fighting Kiriko though, is her hitbox is actually larger on her legs than body. So aiming a little down will help you hit more pellets against her. Moving on to Reaper's bread and butter, Wraith form. Basically, this makes Reaper immune for 3 seconds. Also, it increases his movement speed by 50%, reloads his shotgun, and cleanses him of all negative effects. Probably one of the best non-ultimate abilities in the game, as it allows Reaper to put himself into dangerous situations and get out once they become a little too dangerous. Despite being nerfed a couple patches ago, this ability makes Reaper not completely useless. Next up, Shadow Step. I'm not sure why I'm seeing a lot of talk recently of this being a terrible ability that is rarely used by Reaper players. Yes, it's loud and slow, it takes 2 seconds to complete, but with a couple small tweaks, could be another great ability. It lets Reaper get to high ground easily, can be used both as an escape or a flanking tool, and like Wraith, it also cleanses you of negative effects. And then we have the infamous Death Blossom, a death bomb in low ranks and a suicide bomb in high ranks. 170 damage per second for 3 seconds to all targets within 8 meters. The kicker? Your movement speed is reduced by 50% and you can't cancel it or use your other abilities mid-blossom. While not the worst ult in the game, Death Blossom is situational and becomes increasingly so as you climb the ranks to the point where using it to confirm a solo elim is pretty good value in GM. Anyways, I think it's a cool ult that suits Reaper's kit and what he's all about, so I don't think it needs a total makeover. Instead, a change or two elsewhere could indirectly make it much more effective at higher ranks without making it overpowered at metal ranks. The next thing I want to talk about is what's Reaper's job. I hear a lot of people still referring to him as a tank buster or that he should be flanking 24/7. While he's fully capable of either task, he's not as one-dimensional as many people think. I also have a lot of success with him as a babysitter for my supports, particularly against Dive or a pesky Sombra. The thing is, while Reaper's fully capable of doing any of these tasks, unfortunately there are heroes that do them much better. It's kind of a jack-of-all-trades scenario. So how about counterplay? Counterpicking is a fairly large part of Overwatch 2. Not as big a deal for DPS as it is for tanks, but certain heroes definitely have favorable and unfavorable matchups. Let's first take a look at who Reaper thrives against. This list is rather short. In the DPS pool, Bastion is honestly the only hero Reaper has a significant advantage against because of his enormous hitbox, and he can Wraith Bastion's turret form. Supports? None. They are the bane of his existence. How about tanks? After all, Reaper is a tank buster, right? Well, I'll give him a slight advantage over Winston. But a good Winston who can bubble boogie shouldn't have much of a problem with Reaper, as his jump is on a much shorter cooldown than Shadow Steps. Wrecking Ball, basically the same. If he actively goes after Reaper, he's gonna have a hard time, but Reaper just can't keep up with his speed. Then there's Zarya. Reaper just destroys her. Only way she's gonna have any chance is if Reaper's teammates are half-wits who keep bursting her bubbles and not going all in. But aside from that, the rest of the tanks do not really have to worry about Reaper at all. How the tables have turned, right? Alright, so we have a hero with a great ability, a mediocre ability, a situational ult, and weapons with the shortest effective range in the game. He can be played in several different ways depending on what your team needs, but he's not great at anything. Finally, he's outmatched by the vast majority of the hero pool. Does this sound like a hero who's in a good place? On the surface? No, of course not. He sounds awful, unplayable, straight doo-doo caca. But unlike heroes like Tracer, Soldier, or Genji, who take a lot of mechanical skill, Reaper is much more cerebral. To get value from Reaper, you need to understand the game. Things like off angles, target priority, map layout. You don't need cracked aim and movement to rank up with Reaper. And that's okay. Not all of us have been playing FPSs all our lives. And heroes like Reaper give us a chance to succeed and play with the big boys. He's like the anti-Genji. And I'm perfectly fine with that. So yes, Reaper is underpowered. I'd probably say he's around D tier right now. But with how balanced the heroes are in Overwatch 2, being D tier doesn't mean doo-doo caca. Just means he needs a slight tweak here or there. And in my next video, I'm gonna go over exactly what I think could fix Reaper, bringing him to about B tier at all ranks. But that's all for this one. Thanks for watching, and until my next video, may your footsteps be loud and death blossoms bloody.
Your team is close.
Just push a little further.
Your team has taken
Design at work.
We're not. It's go time.
I'm on fire.
My ultimate is charging.
Overclocking soon. Get ready.
My ultimate is charging.
We are falling apart.
10
Push the
seconds
robot.
remaining. Start with the robot, and we will
Time for the wreck. It's go time.
That is
Healing up.
Death ignited.
Coming at you. My ultimate is charged. My ultimate is charged.
Last push is ours. Let's deliver this barricade.